So recently, a bunch of unaired pilots found their way online, dating back to the 90s. What I want to do is look at these pilots and determine two things. One, did it have potential? And two, how different would popular culture be if this pilot was picked up for a series? The pilot we're looking at today is called Freshmen, and it starred Sarah Chalke shortly after Scrubs ended its run. Because we're all agreed that Scrubs ended in 2009, right? God, that season 9 is dreadful. Now, one of the things we like to do with this series is look at what could have been different had the unaired pilot been successful. Well, if this had been picked up for series, then Sarah Chalke may have been too busy to do Mad Love, a terrible sitcom that nobody but myself watched. And believe me, I struggled. It wouldn't have been bearable without her, so in a way I'm glad this pilot failed. During the research phase of these videos, I try and look up these pilots and read a bit about them, but most of the time I find absolutely nothing. Because these things never aired. They were just made and then sent out to sales team and stuff like that. The only article about this show that I could find was one announcing it as Sarah Chalke's next big role. And the other two leads hadn't even been cast at this point. So let's take a look at Freshmen. The plot is basically 3 freshman members of Congress share quarters in Washington. Are they actually called freshmen, new Congress members? Because he rarely forced that word into the plot synopsis. Feels like they heard the term used once and then based the entire show around it. The problem with shows that happen because someone learns a fun bit of information is that the characters are usually an afterthought. And believe me, that explains a lot about this show. The pilot starts with the swearing in of Congress, when all of a sudden there's an explosion that takes out... Nah, I'm just kidding. That was Designated Survivor, another show. Sarah Chalke's character is in a rush to make it to Congress in time, but she's stopped by security and reveals to them that she's a congresswoman. They have some banter which, admittedly, isn't very funny, but it's funnier than Queen Bee. And it ends up with her searching herself for a pass. I'll play the clip.
I know I had it here somewhere. I think it probably just got caught in my, and you get the, oh wow, okay, there that is.
Then, his suitcase starts to vibrate, which she makes a joke about before discovering there is actually her toothbrush. One of the new congressmen is chatting with the average Republican congressman, but then changes to another guy. He's the focus of the pilot. He's one of our main characters. Sarah Chalke is still struggling to get past security. She does this great big speech, which could have had potential had the show had better writers, but unfortunately it doesn't. We then have a transition, which is straight out of an episode of iCarly. Come on, you can't tell me they planned on doing that the whole time. It works in iCarly, because it's all about the internet, but this is a political show. Why was this here? See, here's the thing. I love Sarah Chalke. She was great as Elliot in Scrubs and Stella in How I Met Your Mother. And she does try her best with this admittedly incredibly weak script. There's a bit of a weird joke that I have suspicion was going to be a running gag. That Sarah Chalke's character Jane has a bit of a crush on the president. Or at least finds him attractive. So she's a bit of a Leslie Knope in that way. She later makes a joke about wanting to get with the president, so yeah, she does fancy him, and he was definitely going to do this every episode. Some Republican guy comes in and tries to get the congressman to ban rainbows because they're gay now. He quickly buys the congressman for 15 grand, and he agrees to ban rainbows because of it. I really hope this isn't how things actually go down, but based on what I've seen with that Judge Thomas being bought over there, it's not beyond the realm of believability. Oh look, that's H.W. Bush. I imagine that we'll never have seen the president character had this pilot been picked up to series. Similar to how they never showed the president on Veep, but it's interesting that we at least saw a former president. Oh no, the website transition. It's a permanent feature. Why? It doesn't fit the show at all. It's so weird. The one time in this episode that this website transition is appropriate is when Elliot refers to something that was all over the internet. Then we cut to a clip of Bill Mayer talking about it. This was the one and only time this transition fit, and it makes me wonder if the reason why they used it so frequently was so this one joke wouldn't be too jarring. Was it worth it? Nah, not really, wasn't that funny. We have a really weird scene where two of the congressmen are living in an apartment together. Then Jane comes in to rent the third bedroom. The congressmen really earn so little that three of them need to chip in order to afford an apartment. I thought they were paid a fortune. I think the worst joke of the pilot goes to one of the congressmen, I don't know his name, who says that he knows a guy who goes by the name Dragon. When they ask him why he went by that name, he says, because his real name is Eugene.
He calls himself the Dragon.
Why does he call himself the Dragon?
Because his real name is Eugene.
Now, I suppose the joke here is that Eugene is a bad name. I mean, yeah, it is, but that's not particularly funny, is it? Jane's assistant is a bit of a weird character. There's not really much to say about him. He's a bit too intense and he never made me laugh, but then again I don't think any part of this show made me laugh. The only unaired pilot that I've laughed so far in this series was the Brooklyn Nine-Nine Type 1 Times Square. Go and watch that video if you want to see what a good unaired pilot looks like. Oh, and she sleeps with the assistant. Not sure why, it was just crammed into the latter half of the episode for no real reason. We get some more unfunny jokes, delivered about as well as they could be delivered thanks to Sarah Chalke. For some reason, we also get a flashback to the scene prior. Couldn't we have just shown that scene when we was there? We go from a scene at the bar to the apartment the next day, and then a flashback to the scene at the bar. Why? There's absolutely no reason why this had to be a flashback. I know that I'm nitpicking here, but it's really bugging me. So that website transition makes a return, and we see that the webpage that we're constantly being shown is Washington's favourite internet newspaper, titled Fools on the Hill, as in Capitol Hill. Right, hear me out here. Isn't there a far better title for this show? Fools on the Hill. That is miles better than Freshmen, which could just as easily be about a person in the first year of college. If you were telling someone about this show, you'd go, have you seen Freshmen? To which they'd reply, no, is there a high school show? Why didn't he just call it The Fools on the Hill? I feel like it's kinda daft how the fictional internet newspaper in this show has a better name than the actual show. I mean, it's right there. How did they miss the mark that much? So, why is this Washington internet newspaper sponsored by Modern Family? Seems a bit off, don't you think? Now, there is one decent joke in this sitcom. It's nothing fantastic, so don't get your hopes up. But one of the congressmen says to a woman, how often do you get to sleep with a member of Congress? And then it's revealed that she's the wife of another congressman. Yeah, like I said, it wasn't a great joke, nothing special, but it had the structure of a joke, which, if you saw my video about the Alicia Silverstone pilot, Queen Bee, is something that we can't take for granted apparently. I feel like Sarah Chalke was wasted in this. If she's not given lines that she has to deliver awkwardly or unfunny jokes, then she has to say a bunch of jargon that doesn't really mean anything.
I need your vote on that farm subsidy bill. It's not going to pass without it.
I've studied the bill and I've analyzed the numbers. It's over 42% frivolous earmarks.
The three members of Congress certainly had potential, don't get me wrong, as characters, but the script for this pilot was far too weak. The jokes weren't funny enough, which I think was ultimately the reason why this was never picked up for series. Had the show had a better writer, then I think the chemistry between these three leads would have been enough for a decent show. But hey, as Gino DeCampo once said, if my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a bike. There isn't enough here to do anything vaguely interesting with, which is why it was left at the pilot stage, never to be aired, up until last week when it found its way online. Now, where do I rank this show alongside the other Unaired pilots? Well, it's certainly better than Queen Bee, because it at least tried to make jokes, but it wasn't as funny as the Times Square cop show pilot. So Freshmen belongs right in the middle, which, if anything, is more insulting to it than anything else. This show was the definition of mid. Do you want to see me talk about more Unaired pilots? If so, let me know in the comments and subscribe. I'm having a lot of fun doing this series and we're very close to reaching 3k, so help us get there. Right, I'll let you go. Bye.